Hello friends and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out something called Dojo of Death. It's a very simple little arcade game by developer Nico Tuason. The premise here is essentially that we're going to play as a ninja, slicing up enemy ninjas as quickly as possible, trying to prevent them from killing us. And it's sort of something like Geometry Wars minus the twin stick shooter element, if that makes sense. It's a very simple game, like I said, and basically our only real impetus to improve is just to try and get a higher score. I mean, that's really it. Sometimes that's all you need, and sometimes when a game is done very simply with a nice presentation style, it doesn't really need much more than that. But I'm sure I could come up with 100 ideas. So why don't we try a few rounds, and we'll see how we do, and we'll take it from there. So here we go. This is very violent, by the way, so if you're not into blood, you may not want to be into this one. When I say very violent, it's got cartoon ninjas getting cut in half and blood shooting out of them. So anyway, here we go. So I control the white ninja. As you can see, I am using my mouse and simply clicking to cause the ninja to dash forward with a sword swipe. And everyone that is caught in that sword swipe, and anything that is caught in that sword swipe, will be basically instantly murdered. That is just kind of how ninjas work. It even will destroy arrows that are still in the air, because there's essentially swordsmen, and then there's also bowmen, which will show up and try and end our life by shooting arrows. So if you happen to be mid-swipe, it's actually not going to do all that much to you, and you're just going to be able to cut right through them. So that first round didn't do very well. 19 kills, score of 5,000, best combo times 5. This is a game that I'm playing on Congregate, so there unfortunately aren't really leaderboards that I'm aware of, unless maybe if you're logged in as a Congregate user. But I have to say, this game really is sort of begging for like a fully fleshed out Steam adaptation or something like that. I could see this being a ton of fun. Let's just jump right into another game here. The game doesn't seem like it really seems to escalate a whole lot, is really one of my only criticisms. Oh, that was really dumb. I just wandered right into the way of that one. The game strikes me as a fantastic framework for something that could be really, like, incredibly long-term addictive, but right now it just stands as to be sort of like kind of a shallow, sort of like an iOS mobile type experience. And in fact, this would work phenomenally well as a mobile game, I'm pretty sure. Because the only control you really need is just to click. So if you can tap anywhere on your screen, and this dojo was to be adapted to a more of a rectangular arena instead of a square one, I think this would actually work just fine. So I'm sort of kiting these guys around in a circle to get them arranged together. It is kind of an interesting thing that all the dudes that you've slain lay on the ground permanently, so you can always see like a running total of your kill count in a way. I mean, granted, you can just see your score as well, and it does recap that information at the end, so it's no big deal. But still, it's kind of neat to see the visual damage that you've caused over your carnage-ridden rampage over in this particular round. So the things that I'm thinking would probably make this work out even better for a long-term development. Well, number one, I would love to see controller support for this. I know it sounds like it's probably unnecessary, but the concept of having a more granular control over the character, how much more granular can it be, right? Clicking is really about as good as it probably could get. But as somebody who's pretty well used to sort of a Geometry Wars style way of getting around, just being able to aim with my left stick and then pressing A to dash, I think would open up quite a bit of room for more gameplay. And as well, if the game wanted to continue down that trajectory towards being something a little bit more expansive, you could add in a few other moves, like for example a shuriken or a roll, and then you'd eventually add in other types of ninjas. Now, I'm not sure if that is maybe something that already is in the game and then just haven't gotten far enough to see it. But I think I'm probably getting, like, past around the 50 point when it comes to kills here, and I have not seen anything other than the swordsman and the bowman. So if they wanted to take this to a further degree, maybe have a ninja that if you don't throw a shuriken at them, maybe they would deflect your sword or something and instantly kill you with a counterattack. Or maybe you need to roll under a certain attack and then be able to counter it in reverse. There's all kinds of options for ways to approach combat in this. And it's so simplistic right now that it's really quite satisfying, and I don't mean to make the game necessarily more convoluted than is actually necessary, but the game feels terrific right now. So if you could use that as a framework and then adapt it to something even bigger and better, well, I only see bigger and better things for it in that regard. And, opening up options by having a few other buttons, and even if it was as simple as adding right-click for another move, for example, a deflection or a shuriken like I mentioned, I think you even right there would have a bunch of fertile ground toward opening up new combat possibilities. And I think it would probably be a positive idea to have there be, like, this mode, where it was sort of like a very simplified, pared down, excuse me, gauntlet mode, and then also have maybe like a campaign mode where things start to scale up and maybe there could be some sort of progression. Maybe it's becoming a little bit trite to say because I think I've said this in quite a few videos now, but the progression mechanic that's used in a game like Rogue Legacy, where every time you fail, provided you have some sort of incremental progress on your own behalf, you're actually going to be able to augment your character with some sort of an ability to make the game a little bit easier every time past that. Seems like a traditionally great way to pull a game into long-term trajectory prospects. Like if you wanted to really make a long-term style game with some long-lasting replay value outside of just score attack and competing with friends on leaderboards, that would be a way to do it pretty simply. And I'm not saying that that isn't even necessarily good enough, because it very well may be. Just if you were to add like a Steam leaderboard with your friends on this, I could already see playing this for a bunch of hours. But that's also because I get a little bit competitive with that. And the only thing I would really want then is just maybe a little bit more accurate control, because occasionally I feel like my mouse cursor just gets a little bit out of control. Like I'm not always in the best of terms with that. And if I had the ability to just use A to constantly dash around and then just modify my direction, I think that might even be better. And you can see that the developer almost has even added in a mechanism for that already, in that at the base of the character, there's actually a little arrow, if you noticed it, which could be basically the visual representation of the analog stick. So basically it's already mostly done, just got to add that input, if anything. Granted, again, not necessary to even go too much further with the concept. It might be just fine the way it is, and I'm very curious to hear your opinions of this. And what you think in general about, like, if this needs anything more or not. Because even if you wanted to, just add some artificial stuff, like add a reward, maybe some sort of silly currency system that unlocks cosmetic stuff, that could be fun as well. Just change the color of your ninja, change the color of your sword, things like that. Maybe you get silly with it, have there be, like, confetti mode, where instead of blood, you cut the ninjas in half and confetti shoots out. There could be disco mode. I mean, you could take this in any number of various directions. There could be various power-ups that pop in on the screen. You could add all kinds of other things. You know, have there be 3 hit points where you could pick up a health container every now and then. The way this is even framed in this map, and I don't know if this is even intentional or not, but it almost has like a sort of a Binding of Isaac style map presentation. I was going to guess that maybe the ninjas were going to originally appear from each one of those hallways, but then it just made more sense to have them all just sort of teleport in the way ninjas do. But if this wanted to become sort of a roguelike, that could also be fantastic. Not to go off on too many tangents, I know it's probably a little late to say that, but just the way that the mechanism for combat feels is really good, and it just feels like the infrastructure is already laid to take this in a number of other directions that could just be really rewarding and fun games. So, I don't know. I guess maybe that's all that there really is at the core of it, and that's all there needs to be. But maybe I'm an idealist, and maybe I'm an optimist. I would love to see more from Dojo of Death. And also at this point in the game, it's getting hard to visualize where your character is when you've got 77 bodies all laying on the ground. Thankfully, the ninja that I control has a slightly different colored garb on, but, you know, things get a little messy, so to speak. So anyway, I think we'll wrap things up at this point. Definitely try out Dojo of Death if you're into something very quick, like a quick little arcade-style game. It's going to keep you addicted to it probably for a good 15-20 minutes, whether or not you're ready for it. So that is a ringing endorsement. Sometimes you just need to get some of the fundamentals right, and everything else just sort of falls into place from there. So note to aspiring developers, maybe don't shoot too ambitious at the start. Start with some little concept, and then work it out from there, because this already looks like it could go in about 1 million different directions, as I've said about 100 times now. So I will leave you for another day. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments. I'm curious to hear your opinions, and please do check some of my other links in the description if you want to check out my own sites, find out more about me and the series, and please do visit again tomorrow. New episodes of Indie Impressions come out every single day, so if you're interested in finding out about a new indie game, this is your go-to place. So I hope to see you again for another episode, and I hope you have a lovely night. Talk to you later.